On this super review, let's take a look at the KZ AS6 in-ear monitors. Another pair of KZ headphones? I gotta stop being surprised by this. All right, so this is the KZ AS06, and this is a 3-driver headphone, or each headphone has got 3 balanced armature drivers. There's no dynamics. This is not a hybrid. This is kind of along the lines of the AS10s, which came out, earlier last year, this year, whatever year you're watching this video. Came out a while ago, and frankly, the AS10s are, of all the KZ headphones I've heard, probably my favorite sounding ones. Now, will the AS06s sound like that? Will they sound different? Will they feel different? I don't know. I don't know what KZ is doing, but let's go ahead and open up the box. We'll find out what you get inside with the KZ AS06. And then I'll give a listening test running against my reference library of music, and then I'll let you know how do these things compare to other KZ headphones. That was a good spin. Good job, KZ. Let's go ahead and rip this plastic off before we do anything else. All right, so we got the KZ AS06 sitting here in a box, and I've unboxed quite a few KZ headphones on this channel. I have a feeling this will be pretty familiar, but let's go ahead and see what we can find out. Okay, there's nothing on the outside of the box. Down here in the bottom, got a little bit of information about where this thing is made, I suppose. We got an email address if you want to email KZ. And then here we've just got information that says that I've got a version with no microphone. Yes! And I got the cyan version. This comes in cyan, which is kind of a bluish green, as well as black. And I thought the cyan looked like it was the more original looking headphone. That said, clearly we're not gonna find out anything else about this headphone from the box, so let's go ahead and open it up and find out what's inside. All right, so what's in the box of the KZ AS06? Pretty expected assortment of things, including paperwork. You get, well, maybe I didn't expect this instruction manual. That's actually a little bit beefy. You get a product warranty card. You can register your product if you want. And you also get this nice little quality check badge. You do get the typical KZ ear tips, including large, mediums, and smalls. And as per typical, the mediums are pre-installed. You get the cable, and this cable, I wasn't sure what kind of cable KZ was going to follow up with. The last KZ headphones I unboxed were the KZ ZSNs, and that cable is by far the best cable I've gotten with a pair of KZ headphones. This one looks like the old cable, and I was ready to be disappointed, but the hooks up here are preformed rather than memory wire, and that, in my opinion, is a big improvement versus the cable that comes with the AS10s. Then you get to the earbuds, and these actually look almost identical to the KZ AS10s. I mean, the shells, the design's a little bit different, right? They've got this pattern printed on the outside, and I'm not a big fan of that look, to be perfectly frank. But the general, like the shell shape and design, this looks like it's exactly the same as the KZ AS10s. That said, I'm more interested, do these things sound like the AS10s? So I'm gonna go ahead and pull in my Walkman, hook these things up and run them against my reference library of music. I'll compare them with some of the other KZ headphones that I've got around, and I do have a lot of KZ headphones. And I'll come back and I'll let you know what are the strengths and the weaknesses of the KZ AS10s, and how do these, if you're looking for a pair of KZ headphones, are these ones, should these be in the running? Because these things are around 50 bucks, 40 bucks, 50 bucks, somewhere around there right now. And yeah, we'll find out. All right, let's talk about the KZ06, which might be my new favorite KZ headphone. It's close. Let's start with talking about the build quality of these things, which is pretty good. It's basically the exact same build as you got with the KZ AS10s, which was basically the same build you got with the KZ ZS10s, which is very similar to what you get with the KZ ES4s. Look, these guys make a lot of headphones and they're all very similar. These are no exception. So of those three headphones, this is without a doubt closer to the AS10s. In fact, I think it's the exact same shape and shell of the AS10s. I think it's a little bit uglier. I preferred being able to see the little circuit board back here versus this metal plate with the number 6 on it, but I'm not gonna pick on that too much. One thing worth calling out with these shells, with this particular shell, is that it is a fairly deep fitting in-ear monitor, which could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. I think that deep fit, it does contribute to a little bit better isolation. It makes these things fit, I think, pretty securely. But if you're not used to having things in your ear that deep, it might be a little bit uncomfortable for you. Personally, I don't have a big issue with it, but it's not the most comfortable in-ear monitor that I've got. One thing that I'm actually really happy about the build quality on this thing is an improvement over the AS10s is this cable. And mostly it comes down to the ear hooks here, which are preformed rather than having a memory wire in them. And it just makes this wire, this cable, so much less fiddly. The rest of it's basically the exact same as the AS10 cable, but those preformed hooks, I'm into them. And in fact, I can use this on my AS10s if I want to. Now, build quality is not the only thing that the AS06 shares in common with the AS10. I think the sound signature on these is also very, very similar, which is to say the AS06 is a warm sounding, it's a pretty bassy headphone. It's got actually some pretty decent treble energy as well, but generally the sound signature is leaning toward the bass and the lower end. There's pretty good soundstage with the AS06, and also I think really pretty good instrument separation. There is a little bit of sibilance in the upper range, like it's a little bit sibilant, but it's not overly sibilant, not to the point that it becomes annoying, and not to the point that it is sort of generating sibilance in places you don't expect it. So that's one thing that's worth calling out. Another thing worth calling out is that, like the AS10, the 06 is a very sensitive in-ear monitor, which is to say, if I plug this into my Sony Walkman, my A45, I actually get a little bit of background noise hiss. And now you don't hear it at all when listening to music. That is, I would consider a fault of the player more so than the in-ear monitor. In fact, that extra sensitivity that these things have actually just means that these can actually get really surprisingly loud if you want to listen to your music super loud. I don't necessarily need it that loud, but if you do, the AS06 will deliver. Now I want to spend a little bit more time comparing these to the KZ AS10s because there is a lot in common with those headphones. Going back and forth between them, frankly, initially, I really couldn't pick out any differences, but I did find a way to pick out some differences, and I can say that the AS06 is, well, it's a little bit more prone to sibilance than the AS10. In fact, with the AS10, I don't really get any sibilance. So there is that. I would say that the bass is a little bit stronger on the AS10s as well. And again, the difference is minute. It's pretty small, but I was listening to Michael Jackson's Get on the Floor, and it's got this bass line going through it that I was just able to pick it out a little bit easier on the AS10s. Not necessarily a better or a worse thing. I'll leave that up to you to decide how much you like bass, but I would say that the AS10 is slightly bassier than this. As well, I would say the AS10 has slightly better soundstage to it versus the AS06, but really I'm picking at straws, I'm picking at hairs, I'm splitting hairs. That's what people say. They don't say the other things I just said. I'm splitting hairs to find differences between these headphones. I think they sound very, very similar. And worth calling out, the AS06 is about 20 bucks cheaper. I might also say that the AS06 actually sounds a little bit more natural. The AS10 has a tendency to have a little bit of a metallic character to it, and that metallic character is here, just I think in a little bit lesser amounts.
So if I were to rate the KZ AS06, look, I'd have to give this thing 5 stars out of 5. This thing sounds good. It's got good stage, it's got good bass, good instrument separation. It's basically a KZ AS10 for 20 bucks less. In the $50 price range. Look, I don't really have any complaints against it. It's just gonna come down to what sort of sound signature do you want. And if you want a warm, bassy sound signature, well, the KZ AS06, I think it's a pretty good option. If you're interested in checking out this headphone, I do have links in the description down below. While you're down there, you can hit the like button for the video. If you liked it, you can subscribe to the channel, and then I'll see you in the next super review.